ahead.
Thank you, Gael. Mr. Adams, I want nothing more than reconciliation on our island, orange and green, but also between different shades of green. But when I read your submission, I found aspects of it to be an outstanding work of revisionism and not reconciliation. And I think to describe the actions of the IRA between 1972 and 1988 as some sort of parallel route to peace and justice, like that to me is wild. And you say yourself in the document that it's all about democracy and that the people should decide. But whatever your document seems to suggest, the people of Ireland, year after year, time after time, in those years, rejected the IRA. So I think for me it's important to say today that this is your version of history, but for others it's not. In my view, it's not a true reflection of our history. You have spoken about legacy, and we are very much against the British government's proposals on legacy. And I assume from what you're saying that you believe that when it comes to the British state and the security agencies, that and the wrongdoings of the RUC and the British Army and the MI5, that there are grave questions that have to be asked of the senior people in the RUC, in the British state and the security agencies. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that those people need to be held to account?
Of course. Look, let's agree to disagree about.
So just on that, then what about legal organisations? Do they not have answers? Do the victims not deserve answers as well from the people high up in the illegal organisations? The IRA Chiefs of Staff, the Northern Commanders, the Quartermasters, should they not be held to account as well? Should they not answer questions?
Well, first of all, the point I was going to make, we can agree to disagree about the history. I'll give you my view. You have a different view. That's fair enough. I was simply describing the fact that there were all of these events, developments, and so on and so forth. So if you know better, that's fair enough. Or if you just disagree, that's also okay. That isn't a problem for me. Sinn Féin a long time ago put forward a proposition for a truth recovery process, and that would have held everyone to account, from the armed groups on the British side, on the Union side, on the Republican side, and everywhere else in between. And I have worked very closely with victims' families for a very, very long time. And we shouldn't generalise about the issue of victims. Victims come at this in different ways. Some want those who bereaved them or injured them held accountable in court and so on. Some don't. Some are the best peacemakers I have ever come across. Some have a view just that they're getting on with their lives. But the general brief answer to your question is that everybody has the right to truth, and anybody who has the truth that they can give to those people, whatever their background, whatever their history, should do so. And there should be a process in place. And it's no point, if I may say this, any of us, particularly those who are in government, bemoaning the British government. I mean, bemoaning the British government have torn up these commitments, torn them up. That's what they've done. So what is our government doing about that? What is our government doing to make the British government accountable in front of international fora, dealing with issues of legacy, dealing with issues of victims and bereavement and so on. So there's an answer to all of this. At the moment, there is no mechanism for resolving these issues. None, despite numerous agreements. I was there, numerous agreements. They've all been torn up, one after one after one. And if you want to answer the question, why is that so? Because British agents and British troops are still doing things in other parts of the world that they used to do in our part of the world. And British governments will not allow themselves to put those people out to dry, no matter what. Maybe Blair was the big exception when he did the Bloody Sunday Commission and so on and so forth, but all of the others, I mean, I was shot, Emer. My house was bombed, Emer.
So was mine.
I know, I understand that, yeah, I understand that. So I wouldn't see myself as a victim, but I'm just making the general point. There is no mechanism for resolving these issues, and what's our government doing about it?
So let me just ask you again, just to be sure. Do you believe that those in command and control of the IRA and other militias should answer for their conduct, account to victims, and have questions to ask? So yes or no?
Well, I've already said this on the public record, that everybody who said the IRA is gone, but everybody who has the ability to give answers to victims should do so. There needs to be a mechanism in place to allow that to happen, that there is an agreement for a mechanism which the British government have torn up. What's the government doing?
What do you mean by ability? If they have the ability to, does that mean like that they're alive and they're able, or that they have permission to?
Who would they need permission from? I mean, I went and helped victims. I didn't go looking for permission for anybody. I got myself in hot water in this institution a couple of times for trying to help victims.
Which victims?
I don't want to get into the detail of that now. But
were they cross-community victims?
I don't know what you mean by the term.
As in, were they victims from all sides? Were they victims?
Yes. Well, how can you differentiate between one victim and another victim?
Well, I agree with you. Victims are victims, but I think it is important that when we are dealing with victims, that we're conscious that it's across all communities, not just that we don't just advocate for Republicans or nationalists or loyalists, that we advocate for all victims.
I agree with you on that.
In your submission, are you aware that you don't at all address hurt and the hurt that was caused during the Troubles?
If you want to bring me back for another hearing on...
We've another 6 minutes. We've loads of time.
But only if you don't keep interrupting me. So we were talking here about, and what I was asked to address was the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, sorry, but the Good Friday, I'm interrupted, but the Good Friday Agreement does say...
Can I just
yeah.
just be helpful to everybody? I think it was a fair question, and if you're prepared to answer it, I think that's fair enough. I appreciate the point you're making that you might, I'm not quite clear, a different time to discuss this issue. If you're saying that, we have to respect the invitation you replied to, which is how the Good Friday Agreement came about. But I think in fairness to Emer, I think...
Sorry, it does say...
If you're happy, I mean, this is no...
It says in the Good Friday Agreement that we acknowledge and address their suffering when we talk. So it's part of the Good Friday Agreement, Mr. Adams. So I'm just asking you, if part of the Good Friday Agreement says that we acknowledge and address suffering, there's nothing in your submission that talks about the hurt during the Troubles.
Yeah, okay. And you may have a point. I'm not trying to dodge the issue. But I would like to think that, and I have addressed this issue publicly in a number of keynote addresses, and also in the chamber here, and that also it isn't that I'm oblivious to the hurt. I'm very, very conscious of it, and I particularly am very, very conscious of actions carried out by the IRA. So I'm very, very conscious of all of that, and I like to think that the real work of one, making sure that conflict never happens again. You know, we can't rework the past, but we can certainly take responsibility for the future. And Sinn Féin have signed up a number of occasions for mechanisms to deal with the very issue that you're dealing with. So it isn't any desire on my part to dodge that issue. I mean, I still live in West Belfast. I pass spots. You know, if I walk the length of the Falls Road, every 100 yards there'll be a place where someone was killed by the various combatants. So I'm very, very conscious. Members of my own family have been, my sister, when she was 6 months pregnant, or husband, a young IRA volunteer, was shot to death. You know? So I'm very, very conscious. I mean, I'm from Ballymurphy. I lived where the Ballymurphy massacre happened. And I'm also very, very conscious of things that the IRA did, which the IRA should not have done. And I've made that also very, very, very clear. The point I was making in relation to your response was that we were dealing here with the putting together of the Good Friday Agreement. And I say 2 or 3 times in the course of my remarks, the biggest achievement, despite its imperfections, is the fact that there are thousands of people alive today that would be dead. Thousands. That's the biggest single achievement.
Yeah, within your document, you talk about the work of others that made the work of peace building more difficult, and there's no acknowledgement that the IRA also made that difficult. They were responsible for over 50% of the deaths as well, and I think it is important that we do talk about these things because they are parts of reconciliation. So
I agree with that as well. My key point in all of this is that the way you resolve problems and the way you get to understand each other's positions is by doing what we're now doing. Talking, dialogue, proactive listening. That's the way you sort all these issues out.
Then I would say that talking to victims and giving victims the answers that they want and have sought for many years, that the people that have those answers, Mr. Adams, that they should give them to those families of their loved ones. Thank you.